Thanks for watching this RTD interview. Don't forget to pick up your RTD Scary George round, only available at stbullion.com. Now enjoy this interview. Welcome to another RTD interview. Today I'm excited to have first-time guest, Ms. Penny White, who's co-founder and president and CEO of the Yield Growth Corporation. She's recognized as Profit Magazine's top 100 Canadian female entrepreneurs. And also in 2018, she gave a TEDx talk in Vancouver on the subject of cannabis. So today, Penny joins us to share her thoughts on the economy, as well as entrepreneurship, as well as opportunities in the cannabis industry. So Penny White, welcome to RTD.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you join RTD. And so as always, I'm always looking for new ways to bring different ways of investment opportunities to the audience, as well as leading trends. And so definitely the cannabis sector is something that a lot of people are starting to have a lot of interest in. So I'm curious and educating myself on the subject matter, as well as the psychedelics and whatnot, as you mentioned prior to us going live. But before we get into that, can you give us a little bit of your background for those that may not know Penny White? Who's Penny White, and how have you arrived at this point in your career?
Absolutely. So my background is corporate and securities law. Prior to running public companies, I ran a corporate and securities law firm for 20 years. And during that time, I took over 100 companies public in the US and Canada. But I was always involved in, a few deals at a time that I like to really get behind. And as my career progressed, I had the opportunity to really make that the focus of my career. So I've done everything from online music to mobile payments to cryptocurrency to pharmaceuticals, and now getting into, I've been in cannabis for several years and now really getting into psychedelic medicine as well.
Sounds good.
So yeah, I run the public companies, I finance them, I run the IR, and build great operating teams.
Sounds good. So I appreciate you for sharing that with us. So definitely looking forward to finding out more about your pathway as an entrepreneur. And so as of 2020, I've really been trying to encourage people to think outside the box and look at ways of uncovering new ways to create different income streams. So definitely going to pick your brain on that as well. But the name of the show is Rethinking the Dollar. And so for short, I say RTD. And so what comes to mind when Penny White hears the words Rethinking the Dollar?
We touched on a bit before, but in terms of, are we going to replace the dollar? Do we still have money in the future? I think there's always going to be something we use to exchange value, but you have to look at the future of digital currency and realize that it's taking over. Really look at where Apple Pay is now, where you just wave your phone and then you've paid. I read yesterday about somebody who puts a chip in her hand in order to pay, in order to drive her Tesla as well. So if there's technology where you can put a little chip in your hand, it's just a matter of time before all of that is contactless. And contactless payments essentially is digital money. So I think that is the future, without a doubt. We saw a big surge in digital currencies, and we saw it almost take over our whole economy a couple of years ago, and then it crashed when the SEC started enforcing it. But that people's movement was there and still is here, and I think Bitcoin's here to stay. And we may see another surge like we did a few years ago in that area. Definitely mobile payments, and even beyond mobile, where it starts to be even things you can't even imagine right now, like having a chip in your hand. I think that could be the way of the future.
Right. Now, a lot of my viewers might wonder, as far as just one of the biggest concerns is that, as I mentioned before, most of the viewers are pretty much heavy in silver, gold, things of that nature. And so we're being introduced to different ways of investing to preserve our wealth as well as to grow. And so one of the things I can imagine people would say is that, with the chip in your hand and things like that, what about the privacy aspect? In your personal opinion, how important will privacy be in the future, as far as, just not necessarily having your entire financial world open to just solely digital chips and things of that nature?
Well, we have to be realistic, and privacy doesn't exist anymore. That's already a thing of the past, in my opinion. Like, everything we do is an open book, and we pretty much have to govern ourselves accordingly. So, it's, in a way it's good because it prevents the kind of crime that could happen in the past. But really, everything we do is can be looked at by anyone. Anyone can hack into everything we're doing. We're already digital. Privacy rights exist, but how enforceable are they? I'm not sure.
Right, I understand that. Now, I'm curious to get your thoughts on, what's currently some things, 2020, where you have a lot of problems in the world. So I'm curious to find out, as far as your particular industry now, you're in the cannabis sector. So I'm assuming there's other industries as well as sectors that might have an impact on your particular sector. Is there anything else that you're keeping an eye on that either have you concerned or excited outside of the current projects you're involved in now?
Well, you think about it, like, I look at the beginning of this century as an exciting time for technology. So here we are at the beginning of what I think is going to be known as the roaring 20s, and I hope it will be. And I just think about how fast technology is progressing. And so 3D printers are something that really excite me, and the possibility of designing items for 3D printing and then selling the blueprints is kind of mind-blowing. I think content is going to continue to be huge. I mean, look at what Netflix has done over the past 5 years. Content is huge. Billions and billions of dollars are getting spent by Apple and Google and, you know, all these Netflix and all these guys, and it's just going to keep growing. So I think content is an area that really people haven't recognized as much. I think, you know, that, you know, making films, making movies, creating really high quality content is going to be something that people start to realize is of huge, huge value, and technology too. And then, you know, look at what are the world's problems. The world's problems right now are obesity, depression, anxiety. And those are the big problems that, you know, we really haven't solved yet, even with our technology. So that's why, you know, that's too why I'm very excited about all kinds of plant-based medicine, but really any kind of biotech or pharmaceuticals or natural medicines that really help humanity solve these issues. And food is going to be huge. Being able to find a protein that can feed the masses is something that's going to become a need over the next couple of decades. And also, of course, water. The shortages of water is going to become more of an issue over time.
Interesting. So one thing that stood out in you sharing your thoughts is that clearly, you know, as an entrepreneur, you're focused on solving problems. And so like, just, you know, your optimism towards the future is you're very positive about, you know, the opportunities that exist for yourself and getting involved in solving people's problems. So I would like to shift towards entrepreneurship, because I know you have a very heavy background and been involved in a lot of different projects. And so clearly, my personal opinion is that people who label themselves as an entrepreneur, they're people who actually look for real world problems and they try to find solutions. And so for you, it looks like your career has been based upon solving problems or getting involved in things that have trends that can get better and grow and help people. Give us some of your rundown as an entrepreneur. What led you down this pathway as an entrepreneur, and, you know, how would you define yourself as an entrepreneur?
You know, I think you're right. A lot of entrepreneurs will look at problems to solve. And another way of looking at it is looking for opportunity. So I really enjoy business. I really enjoy creating something that people love, that improves their life. And when I graduated from law school, I had the opportunity to get into film distribution, which was a passion of mine. I love the film industry. And pretty soon after that, the dot-com world took off. I got bought out by a dot-com, and I was absolutely fascinated at the opportunities that the dot-com back in, you know, the late 90s provided. And it was just amazing to see, I guess, the rise of the entire world of, you know, that is now predominantly Google and Amazon and so on, that grew out of nothing so quickly. And it was a combination of consumer and investor interest. And since then, I became really interested in the capital markets. And I really enjoy when investors drive a trend, or they're the ones telling me about a trend. It's happened, you know, I was involved in the capital markets when lithium became very hot, and that was very cool to see. And again, it was almost like the investors were doing the research, and then we followed what the investors were saying and realized, oh, they're onto something. Also with Bitcoin, you know, I was working in mobile payments for 2 years, and I was really late to the game with digital currency and Bitcoin. And then I really had to pay attention to what investors were researching and saying, this is huge. This is going to be the next big thing. And it certainly was huge. And I'm glad I listened to them. The same thing happened with cannabis. It was really, for me, when investor interest really got into the cannabis side, that I took a harder look at it and realized, wow, look at this plant. Look at the amazing things it can do. Look at the numbers as this legalizes across the globe. This huge untapped market with such great potential, and really potential for therapeutic value too. And now what I see as a really exciting trend is psychedelic medicine. It's something that a lot of people wouldn't have expected to ever see legalized, at least in our lifetimes, but, you know, it is happening so fast. And Oregon has it on the ballot this year. And every time I hear somebody talk about the benefits to people's mental health, it just blows me away. And so as this becomes legal, I think it could really be transformative.
Right. Interesting. So, you know, I like how you recognize trends. And so to me, if I was to just sum up some of the things you mentioned outside the different industries, is paying attention to trends. And so, before we move further into the cannabis sector as well as the psychedelics, I'm curious to find out some of the details to that from the historical side, as well as what you see developing trend-wise. You're clearly someone who pays attention to trends. So as an entrepreneur, and last question on entrepreneurship, because I want to really drive this home to the audience on the importance of thinking outside the box. You hinted at trends. So is there any particular step or procedure that you would recommend or give someone advice on how to recognize trends? Is there anything that you personally, how do you put your ears to the ground and listen? And, how do you recognize trends in your personal opinion?
I mean, I think you just have to be very aware of what's happening. If you're a musician, you're going to be listening to all the music that's going on and kind of understanding what people want to hear. If you're building a business in the capital markets, you have to watch what the other public companies are doing. You have to see where the trends are, what investors are looking to buy, where the stocks are increasing. You have to listen to what the analysts are saying. Always you have to pay attention to everything, and then you have to be creative. Really, you need to really just think about it and imagine. You have to basically connect with your subconscious mind that's so powerful and really think creatively about, okay, where does this lead us in the future?
Interesting. Very interesting there. So appreciate you for sharing that. So let's dive a little bit further into the cannabis sector. And so 2018, you gave a TEDx talk, and so didn't have a chance to see it, but I'm curious to find out, give us some of the background of the cannabis sector, some historical aspects of it, and why all of a sudden now is really becoming extremely popular. It seems like a trend that's either beginning or taking off, or in the middle phase of it. Give us a rundown on cannabis and some of the benefits and from opportunities looking forward.
Sure. Well, here in Vancouver is sort of where a lot of the activism started to legalize marijuana because of the medical benefits. About 5 or 6 years ago, it became widely known that CBD could treat a lot of different things, like that a lot of other drugs couldn't treat. And there were kids that were having problems, and the doctors were starting to realize that cannabis could really be used for pain and anxiety and epilepsy. And it was found that it was treating children with epilepsy. So really the movement was to legalize this so people could get hold of this plant, use it. And in Canada, under our constitution, someone brought a constitutional challenge, and the judge said yes, Canadians are entitled to have medical access to cannabis. And that really drove legalization. So as a lawyer, I was lucky to get involved in some of the very first cannabis deals about 5 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. And such a big industry was created. Basically, you had these licensed producers that were getting a license from the Canadian government and growing to valuations of over $10 billion within a 5-year period. So there's been a bit of a pullback in the cannabis industry, but still there's multiple companies with over $1 billion in valuation that were created within a 5-year period. And so many people just made absolute fortunes, especially the investors who were the early stage investors in these deals. So many people retired. It was just a huge phenomenon. And so now what's happened is full legalization, recreational, has happened in Canada for everything from flower to edibles to topicals. It's being used recreationally and for therapeutic benefits. And now in the US, you're having a real push towards legalization. So it's already legal in many states. Oregon is a place where we have our products, for example. They're estimating the total value of the Oregon cannabis market's $1 billion. So it's a huge, huge market. And as it becomes legal in each new state, lots of people become aware of it. And, those people have the ability to go and purchase cannabis for the therapeutic benefits, be it anxiety or depression or pain, or whatever it is, or recreational use that's allowed in a lot of states. And so you also have a growing awareness and this education that's happening. And a lot of people decide that they want to be a part of this as, in their investment portfolio. And so you have more and more investors coming to the table, especially in the US, because in some ways, the U.S. states have driven this market. Like California is one of the biggest markets in the world. I think it is the biggest. But federally, it's not legal yet. So it's in this really weird space. But because it's kind of semi-prohibition, there's still a lot of opportunity. It's still early stages. You don't have the big pharma of the world hasn't gotten into this yet. When they do, the values will be even higher. So I think, it's really evolving, and it's decriminalizing around the world, and the industry is just growing and growing. It's really exciting to get involved in a brand new industry.
Right. Interesting. Now I'm curious to find out, because apart from just, knowing about cannabis in the form of marijuana, the kind that's kind of that's been the primary stigma of what of cannabis has been labeled as, and that's why it's been frowned upon as a illegal drug as for a variety of reasons. So as far as some of the benefits, and so the cannabinoid plant, I don't know the full details. Perhaps you can educate us on that, but it's broken down into so many different types and strands and all that type of stuff right there. So the CBD oil itself, I personally myself take it, and so it's been a blessing to me. And so that's why I was excited to get a chance to, have this interview. And so give us some of as of now, what do we know as far as the benefits, as far as what we can extract from the plant, how many strands or different types, or give us some of that foundational stuff of what's.
Sure. So what we've discovered is that we have a cannabinoid system, that we actually have receptors in our body that receive cannabinoids. So cannabinoids being THC, CBD, and now researchers are finding, dozens of other cannabinoids. We know a lot about THC and CBD. And what we know about THC is that's the cannabinoid that does get you high, but it's also the one that can really it can really offer a lot of health benefits. So when you put THC in a topical and you put it in a cream and you put it on your body, it actually relieves pain significantly. And so it's a potential treatment that you can take instead of taking opioids. And if you think about one, we mentioned before, thinking about what are the world's problems, opioid dependence is a huge problem. So cannabis, first of all, it offers an alternative in terms of pain relief. So there's a lot of people that can take cannabis instead of taking an opiate. And obviously we know how opiates are dangerous now, and cannabis doesn't have that same danger that opiates do, but it does offer pain relief. Another thing which is really interesting is the use of cannabis to treat addiction. So there's actually clinical trials going on in Canada, in Vancouver right now, with some very hard drug users. We're talking about heroin, cocaine, crack, other opioids. And it's found that cannabis can actually help them deal with those cravings and get off those hard drugs, which is amazing. So there's that potential. And then there's general anxiety. Like a lot of people take CBD just to relieve that little edge maybe that they're feeling in modern life, because modern life is too hard. And cannabis, the CBD can just kind of ease them through some of that. And people need to let off steam. Not everybody wants to, drink heavily, binge drink, or take drugs that are really hard. And what cannabis does is allows you to relax and focus for some people. And then there's very serious pharmaceutical benefits. Like it's been approved and is used and it treats epilepsy, for example, and prevents most of the symptoms from it. So there's far-reaching medical benefits of cannabis, and basically it's a plant. And I think that's the key thing people are, the governments are now realizing is, this is not something that's a very dangerous substance. This is a plant that can grow in your garden. So, let's be realistic. It has all these benefits. It probably has way more benefits we don't even know about, but the clinical trials are just going on, and the studies are just really at their infancy. We actually, as a company, we really appreciate CBD and parts of the hemp plant for the benefits it can have for your skin. So like any plant, any essential oil or any oil, there's lots of different benefits you can have. CBD actually gets rid of acne. It actually gets rid of wrinkles. It improves elasticity. So it's a great ingredient to combine with other botanicals to put into skincare products.
Interesting. So you mentioned your company. So let's get into the Yield Growth Corporation. And so give us the foundation of that. How long has it been? What made you give me some rundown as to how you got involved with that and started that company.
Sure. So like I said before, I was involved in some of the very early deals, which happened 5 years ago. But the thing is, they were mostly involved in agriculture. So they were really growing operations. And a couple of years ago, I decided I really wanted to get in the cannabis sector, and actually started out in payments, believe it or not. And we started going down to the US and interviewing some of the bigger chain owners and saying, how can we solve your payment problem? And they said, what's a bigger problem for us is we have a demand for things like sunscreen and all kinds of topicals. Do you have like a great massage oil with THC and CBD in it? This is what people want. Because there's no great packaged good companies, and most of the marijuana companies back then are, they're they're more agriculture based. They don't have the expertise to make those high value products. And so I saw a bit of a niche opening in the market, and I kind of thought this is going to become bigger in the future. And I'm really glad we did that, because it turns out we're right. So we spent some time looking for a way to get some really good quality products. It was really tough because they didn't exist. So THC topicals, meaning skin creams, body creams, lotions, oils, pain bombs, and that kind of thing, it's never been a legal industry. So we had to go basically to India to buy a catalog from an Ayurvedic practitioner who'd been using cannabinoids in her formulas to treat people, to help them with, health issues, but also to treat cancer. So often cannabis is used for treatments in different types of cancer. And we bought her whole catalog, and it was all Ayurvedic based, and Ayurvedic medicine is a 5,000-year-old medicine. So it's been around forever. So I feel like these formulas tap into our ancient selves, ancient civilizations that knew so much about really how to use plants for our benefit. So we brought her in really as a partner and hired her team. So full-time, 3 people working to develop these formulas, and our goal was to commercialize them, bring them to market, and really that's what we've done. So since that happened about 2.5 years ago, since then we brought 20 products to market. We've got now 200 formulas in our library that we've expanded upon. We have over 60 products that have been stability tested for a 2-year shelf life. We have 4 different brands that we've created. We have all kinds of packaging that we've done, and we've built major distribution channels around the world, and doing all this in a world that is still in prohibition. So it's been really interesting and exciting, and I feel like we're laying down tracks where no one really has done this before.
Interesting. And so it sounds like, you guys are a publicly traded company up in Canada. So give us
Yeah.
some of the foundations of, what's your ticker symbol, and give us some of the outlays of
Sure. So the company is called the Yield Growth Corp, and our symbol in Canada is BOSS, BOSS. We're also traded over the counter in the US, and our symbol is BOSQF. We're also traded on about 6 German exchanges, so you can just look us up there. The Frankfurt one is YG3. And so we're based in Vancouver. We have a very, very experienced executive team. I've been so lucky to get executives stealing from some multi-billion-dollar companies. So we've got a couple of executives from Aritzia, which is it's a fashion brands house, which does over $100 million in revenue. It's got $1 billion market cap on the TSX. One of our advisors, actually we just announced today, he's coming on as the chairman of the board of our mushroom subsidiary. He was the former chairman of Johnson & Johnson. So that is the world's largest pharmaceutical company. It's so exciting to have him on board. One of our advisors was the COO of MAC Cosmetics, which is the world's largest beauty brand. We also have experience within our team from Skechers, big sneaker company out of LA that's done really well. And even our team has worked at, our CFO came out of Pepsi Cola and Coca-Cola in China before he came to Canada. So we've got experience of these great big global brands and brought them to this venture company and this new opportunity, and really thinking big in terms of laying down a foundation that can allow us to grow substantially.
So it sounds like you guys have something just ready to grow pretty significantly. And so it sounds like you have a nice variety of products and whatnot. So I'm assuming you have some skin in the game as far as being a shareholder. And so what's your 5-year, 10-year? What do you see the yield growth? Where do you see the industry taking based upon the concept of this trend that's growing?
Yeah, and I definitely have skin in the game. I'm the biggest shareholder. I own about 18% of the company, and I'm very excited about the potential for this company. And right now, I think we're undervalued. We're $30 million Canadian, about a $24 million US valuation. My goal is to build the value up to 100 million in the next couple of years. And the way that we're going to do this is, first of all, by continuing to develop these brands, build out our products and distribution channels, but we also build companies. So we have 5 subsidiaries that we're building out, and each one of those we will put together a separate management team and launch it, so that we also have a great stock portfolio in our as assets.
Interesting. Now, I'm curious to find out the psychedelics you're referring to. Give us some of the rundown of that. And so, assuming that's one of the things that probably excites you as well, because I'm curious to find out more about that. Give us some of the rundown on what that's all about.
Oh yeah, we talked about trends earlier, and this is definitely a trend. I think that we're at the very beginning of. Even we just really got into it about 4 months ago, and over the past 4 months, things are really blowing up, and it's so exciting. I think people just need this. They need something that allows them to get out of their trauma, get out of their depression, get out of their blah, get out of their anxiety. And psychedelic medicine offers therapies to treat I guess, mental problems that nothing else has adequately treated. So there's about 20 different clinical studies going on now at major universities such as Harvard, Stanford, Johns Hopkins. And the results that we're starting to see, especially from Johns Hopkins, which has a special psychedelic research center, are absolutely mind-blowing. So they're finding that psychedelic guided therapy can treat addictions in a way that nothing has ever treated them before. Everything from alcohol addiction, nicotine addiction, opioid addiction, and even food disorders. So we've actually done some research and development, and we did a full review of the patents, and we saw an opportunity in using psychedelic medicine to treat eating disorders and overeating and obesity. But even beyond that, just for the average healthy day person who wants to control their eating habits, we're basically suggesting that you could use psilocybin as a microdose. It's almost like a daily vitamin to help you have better mind power, to follow a strict diet, to allow you to, get to the ideal body weight that you want, or the exact health, or just to follow like a strict, whether it's keto or, you want to eat more veggies. Our theory is that these psychedelics, they're powerful tools to allow the brain to be smarter and more powerful. And there's even some anecdotal evidence that microdosing with psilocybin, which is from the magic mushroom, can even makes you smarter and improves your memory, but also improves your eyesight and improves your hearing over time. So there's a lot of studies going on right now. We're in a bit of a renaissance when it comes to psychedelic research, because for decades it was illegal. And now it's sort of come back. The governments are saying, you know what? This is a plant, again, with magic mushrooms, just like marijuana. Now that marijuana is legal, it's generated lots of revenue for the government. It hasn't had many negative consequences. I mean, there's no health problems consequent from it. Now I think regulators and people are looking at what's the next thing. Well, magic mushrooms are a plant. They're relatively safe as long as they're used in kind of a supervised or controlled environment. And there's now 100 cities around the world that are talking about legalizing it. It's actually going on the ballot in the state of Oregon this year to legalize the use of psychedelic mushrooms for guided therapy. And there's a real movement from psychiatrists and counselors and psychologists who say psychedelics can actually treat people in a way that nothing else has worked. So when it comes to PTSD and trauma, psychedelics can rewire the brain and allow somebody to think about something with a fresh perspective and basically heal them. And then there's a lot of people that say, well, it's not just for people that are sick. I mean, everybody can be healthier mentally. And so it could be that this whole psychedelics movement drives humanity to pay more attention to their mental health. And so if you think about the biggest problems we have right now with depression and anxiety worldwide, this is a multi-trillion-dollar cost to the economy. So it's a huge, huge industry and a huge opportunity.
Well, interesting there. So definitely, I appreciate you for sharing that information. A lot of things I wasn't aware of. So I'm sure the audience will appreciate that. So Penny White, as always, it's been great to have you here on RTD Interviews. Is there anything about the Yield Growth Corporation that we might not have touched or might not have asked that you want to make sure the viewers have a chance to find out about?
I mean, take a look at our products. Go to urbanjuve.com. Our skincare products are available around the world. If you live in Oregon, check out our products in the dispensaries under the brand Right and Well. And you can go to rightandwellplus.com to take a look at the products, and invite you to go to our website, yieldgrowth.com. Sign up for our newsletters. We like to keep our investors and prospective investors up to date with everything that's going on. So sign up and join us for what's going to happen over the next year. I think it's going to be really fun.
Sounds good. Well, Penny White, it's been great having you here on RTD. Looking forward to following this trend as it moves forward. Definitely excited to find out more and put a little skin in the game, perhaps myself. So I appreciate you for educating the audience and giving us a good insight as to what's going on and what trends lie ahead. So once again, thanks for joining us here on RTD.
Thank you, Michael. It's been a pleasure.